Delete your phone.
Hello again, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Really nice to see you all. I am so happy to introduce Emma and Rash here today from Chase to Vere. They're going to be talking to you about retirement planning for dental hygienists and dental therapists. If you could just put in the chat that you can hear and see us all okay, we'd be very, very grateful. It just makes it easier for us. At the end of the session, Rash and Emma will be happy to answer any questions. So if you could put them in the Q&A box, that would be great, because that just makes it easier for us to filter those questions. We're going to allow about an hour tonight, and the recording will be available afterwards, just in case anything happens and you need to leave us. So I'll be in the background as usual. I'm going to hand over to Emma and to Rash, and I will see you in around about 45 minutes.
Thanks, Sharon. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here on the start of a lovely bank holiday weekend. So yeah, as Sharon said, we are going to be talking about retirement planning this evening. We are going to switch our cameras off just so we are not a distraction for you. So we will obviously still be here, but you won't be able to see us. So yeah, you've seen our faces, but we look a little bit younger on these pictures. So myself and Rash, our independent financial advisors here at Chase to Vere. All that means is if you do speak to any of us at Chase to Vere, our advice is truly independent. So we don't have a one size fits all for your planning needs. We will look at you as an individual and make any recommendations based on your personal circumstances. So we'll get into the slideshow if it lets me click. Oh, there we go. So we'll start off with a lovely Warren Buffett quote here. So somebody today is sitting in the shade because somebody planted a tree a long time ago. And we see this quote as something you can take into your retirement planning. So it is easy to focus on the present because you're just looking at your everyday living and your expenses, but planning for the future is one of the most important investments that you can make. Much like planting a tree, the earlier you start saving for retirement, the stronger and more rewarding your financial future will be. We understand that there will be a mixed range of ages on this webinar this evening, but it goes without saying that if you start now, it's better. So the course of this presentation, we will help you understand why planning for retirement is important, especially earlier in your career. We will focus on the benefits of starting early, estimating what your retirement needs might be and the different ways you can save, because it isn't always just pensions. And we'll also how to set realistic goals. So retirement might feel like a distant goal, especially if you're early on in your career, because like I say, you're focused on building your career, managing your day-to-day priorities. Retirement might just not be in your head. The reality is, the earlier you start planning, the easier it is to achieve the lifestyle that you want in retirement. So thinking ahead allows you to take advantage of time, firstly, of growth and any opportunities that can make a significant difference to your future. So we'll just explore why starting now is crucial and how it sets the foundation for long-term security. So the reasons why you should start thinking about retirement. So living the life you want. Retirement is all about enjoying the freedom to pursue your passions. So whether it be in spending your days golfing, going on holidays, spending time with your loved ones, it's about living on your terms. Planning now ensures you maintain your desired lifestyle without having any financial stress when you get there. There is a rise in life expectancy in the UK. So people are living longer. So life expectancy for men is currently 78.8, and for females, it's 82.8. So if you think about potentially retiring at 60, you've got 30 years of retirement to fund. So the power of starting early, time is your greatest ally. Starting early allows your savings to grow through compound interest. Even small contributions now can lead to significant results over time. Any sort of delays in your retirement savings means that you'd have to do higher contributions later on to catch up. So it will minimize your future financial stress and ensures you're not overly reliant on things like the state pension or even working longer than you wanted to. So calculating the flexibility for life's changes, So saving early gives you more choices. So whether you want to retire early or even reducing your hours to part-time as you get later on in life, or just adapting to unexpected changes in life. You're not just saving for retirement, you're saving for that independence when you get to retirement. So still being able to do the things that you love and enjoy whilst you're working. You've just got more time to do so. So we've explored why it's important to start planning, but the next step is figuring out what that actually looks like. So how much is enough? Well, that is the big question. Retirement is obviously a time to enjoy the rewards of your hard work. So all the years that you've been working, you want to then enjoy your time. But how much you'll need to make that possible does depend on the lifestyle that you envision. Whether you dream of a quiet countryside living, traveling the world, planning your retirement fund is key to turning those dreams into a reality. Estimating how much you'll need might seem a little overwhelming, but with a few simple calculations and clear goals in your mind, you can create a roadmap to financial freedom in retirement. So let's break down what it might cost and how to ensure your savings align with your ambitions when you get there. So the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association proposes these 3 levels of retirement. So you've got your minimum lifestyle. So you can see the figures on the screen. You've got your minimum lifestyle, which is your basic living costs with a little bit for leisure. You've got your moderate lifestyle, which is more secure, can include a foreign holiday a year and eat out a few times a month. Then you've got your comfortable lifestyle. So obviously you can see the difference in the figures in what you would need in retirement to have them different levels of lifestyle. So how much is enough? That is the number one question. So the next step is translating that into specific goals for yourself. And the simple way to do that is the 25 times rule. So it's a guideline that suggests you should aim to save 25 times your annual expenses before retirement. So our example here is £30,000 a year. So timesing that by 25, you would need savings of £750,000, which might seem incredibly large to some of our younger people on the call. But as we say, starting early can get you on the right roadmap. And we've got some more figures in a moment that will show you how you can get there. Speaking with a financial advisor can help with this. So we can sit down and look at how many years you've got to go, what your specific goals are for retirement. This rule is based on the assumption that a well-invested portfolio can sustainably provide 4% a year. So a financial advisor can help with that investment portfolio to make sure you're diversified. So what's your number? So take a guess, sit there. Obviously, you don't have to share it. Just have a think what you would be comfortable with in retirement. So as a yearly income, what you think you'd want, and then give that times 25. And that is the figure you kind of want to be aiming for. Don't worry about getting it right. It's just obviously to get you thinking while you're on this webinar. So now that you've thought about what you might need in retirement and the lifestyle you potentially want, the next question is, how do we get you there? So another lovely Warren Buffett quote. So he's a strong advocate for the power of compound interest. So his quote's on the screen there. It just reinforces why starting early is so important, but it also raises the question, how do you make your savings work for you? So we'll dive into the various ways you can save for retirement and harness the full potential of compound interest. So as I said, we've got some more figures here. So if you started at 25 and you were saving £200 a month with an annual return of 5% per year, you'll get, by the time you're 65, £305,204. If you started at 35, you'd get nearly half as much. And if you started at 45, it's a fraction of what you could have saved. However, you can change these monthly contributions. So we've seen the impact of saving £200 a month, but if you can adjust your monthly contributions, this is the different levels you could make. So you can see increasing the amount you save each month can dramatically change the outcome, which can either let you reach your goals earlier, so you could retire earlier, or even exceed what you thought that you needed. So don't panic if you are starting later. Speaking to an advisor, we can help you set goals and put a clear action plan together on how to achieve them. So yeah, booking an appointment with one of us will help, especially if you're starting later. If you're starting earlier, you probably won't need to save as much every month, but as we say, important to think about. There are some real world factors that will impact on your returns. So taxes on returns. If you're investing in a pension, you wouldn't have any of those taxes to worry about when you're growing on your investment. So the compound interest I spoke about, you're not worried about them. However, different forms of investment do have different taxes. So you do need to be aware of them having a potential impact on your savings. Fees and charges. So wherever you're invested or saving, there's always different types of charges involved. They are all very clear, especially now because all products are FCA regulated or protected by the FSCS. Products that we recommend are. So you are always fully aware of any charges, but they do have an impact on what your yearly return could be. Inflation is a biggie, especially at the moment. So everyone will have been affected by the cost of living increasing. And what that does is reduce the purchasing power. So if you've got £100 in cash, for example, if you just kept that in cash for a year, inflation would reduce the amount you could purchase for £100. So £100 today could buy you X amount of goods, whereas in a year's time, that X amount of goods would be lower. So you do need to take that into effect, and inflation over the years will also make an impact. There are variable rates of return, so investment returns aren't always guaranteed. There is a thing which is market volatility. So what that means is investment returns going up and down in a cyclical cycle. Economic conditions, we have no control over, unfortunately, but you do get variable rates. So one year you can have a great year, next year, an average year. So you just need to be aware that you're in it for the long term. So your investment returns will ride out them waves anyway. Also behavioral factors. So a lot of people at the moment, we had a few client calls about the things that happen in the US, people panicking about their investments. You just need to sit tight and be sensible. So a lot of people would have thought about getting rid of their investments because of what's happening, especially when it comes to pensions and longer term investments. We sit and ride it out because the markets are always going to bounce back. So trying not to have those emotional decisions. Again, this is where a financial advisor can come in. So if things are happening in the world, you can give us a call and we can put you at ease. So yeah, they're different things that can impact on your returns. So we've looked at some real world factors there. While these factors can seem like obstacles, the good news is there are many ways to save for retirement, and they can help you navigate these challenges and maximize your returns. So from pensions, ISAs, investment, property, Each option offers unique benefits and considerations. So we'll explore these savings methods now and how they work together to help you build a secure and fulfilling retirement. So the most obvious for retirement is private pensions. So these are long-term savings plans and they are specifically for retirement. So with most pensions, you are unable to access them until you're 55 or 57, depending on how old you are now. That is rising to 58 from the year 2028. So many of you will be enlisted in your workplace pension. So you are automatically enrolled in this subject to certain criteria. And the benefit of being in a workplace pension is that you benefit from your contributions along with your employer contributions. So you're basically getting free money from your employer. You also have things like personal pensions, so SIPs and private pensions. There's the one where you can manage your contributions. So when I spoke earlier about potentially saving £200 a month, and you can increase that to 400, 1,000, whatever you can afford, then personal pensions will help because you can flexibly manage them. Everybody in the UK does receive an annual allowance of £60,000 per year. There is an asterisk there about if you're a high earner, that is tapered down. Again, this is something we can help you look at if you're potentially going to have a reduced annual allowance. So what an annual allowance is the maximum amount of tax-free contributions you can make into a pension. And that does include any employer contributions that go in. So the benefits of pensions are tax efficient first and foremost. So when you're contributing, you do receive 20% tax relief. If you're a basic rate taxpayer, if you're a higher rate or additional rate, you'll get the full 40 or 45%. Employer contributions, obviously, I said free money, boosting your pension savings. So that's obviously a pro. And your investments are managed to grow over time. Some of the cons, obviously, you're locked in. You cannot access a pension at all, subject to very, very specific reasons if you could access it, but it's very unlikely. You are subject to investment risk, but if you are in a very well diversified portfolio, you are mitigating those risks. And like I say, limited access before retirement age. The next way you could save is through ISAs or individual savings account. These are extremely tax efficient. So any growth or dividends, income that come from ISAs are completely tax free. And for that reason, the UK government have an annual contribution limit of £20,000 per person. So every 6th of April, that annual contribution limit resets and you get another 20,000. This does include any lifetime ISAs. So for those of you that have lifetime ISAs, the limit is £4,000 per year, but that is included in your £20,000 allowance. So if you've used your full 4,000 in a lifetime ISA, you've only got £16,000 left in another ISA. So the benefits, obviously tax-free, and that's also when you're taking the money out of the ISAs, that it's completely tax-free. It's flexible, so with a normal stocks and shares ISA, you can access it at any point, so you don't have to wait till 57, 58. You can take your ISA money whenever you want. The only caveat to that is the lifetime ISA is only after age 60. The cons of it is the limited contribution allowance, so £20,000 a year, but obviously if you're in a couple, you can do £20,000 each, and it's per tax year. The lifetime ISA con is that you do get a penalty if you try to withdraw early, which is 25% of the value. And again, the same, it depends on market performance, the same as with pensions. So investments can go up and as well as down. There's also just general investments, so just stocks, bonds, ETFs, things like that. They aim to generate gains over and above inflation. So although they've got no contribution limits, they are subject to taxes. So the capital gains tax, for example, the allowance is only we've still got the 23-24 rate on there. But yeah, the capital gains tax allowance and also any dividend income is taxable as well at your marginal rates. So there are potential for higher returns compared to just normal savings accounts. You can access them at any point, so you don't have to wait again like you do for pensions. And you can spread your risk over different investments. The cons and market risk, again, can lead to short-term volatility, as we have recently seen. You are subject to some taxes and you do require knowledge and regular monitoring. But that's where we come in, because we have the knowledge and we can regularly monitor those things for you. Property. So property is very popular. So people see this as bricks and mortar. They know they've got it. They know they can sell it. They know that they can get an income from a tenant. But there are obviously different considerations when it comes to property, which is obviously the outlay at the beginning. So if you're paying for a property, the initial cost. Again, if you've got tenants, it's being a landlord, it's looking after the property, making sure everything is up to scratch with maintenance. Again, market fluctuations. So if you need to sell your property quickly for whatever reason that may be, is there a market at the moment? Is the housing market doing well? Are you going to be able to sell it as quick as you need the money? So that's what we mean by less liquid. It can be difficult to sell a property. And again, you're subject to tax on if you're getting income from a tenant or on the proceeds of the sale. There are some other options. So hopefully everybody on the call will have been contributing national insurance and you will be provided with a state pension. We do recommend logging onto the government gateway and checking your state pension. It's called a BR19. You can Google it, it's really easy to find, and you can check your national insurance contributions just to make sure you're on track for getting the full state pension. So at the minute, that is at 68 for, depending on your age again, but your state pension is long after the time you could take a private pension. The pros of this, obviously it's guaranteed for life, which is really good. So you could live till you're 150 and you'd still get that state pension. And it is adjusted for inflation. So that real world thought that you had to think about earlier, it is protected against inflation, the state pension. And it is, you know, you're going to get it. So you can see when you're looking at your BR19 that you are going to get that. So when you're planning your retirement, you know at 68, I'm going to get X amount for retirement. It is unlikely to cover your full retirement needs. So you can see there the new state pension is £11,500. Will that realistically cover all your bills? Who knows? Only you do. Business investment. So people put in money into a business. You've got the opportunity for high returns and you've got control over it all. It is higher risk, depending obviously on the success of the business and potential for selling it when you do come to retirement. Is it going to be a business that somebody is going to want to purchase from you? So now we've explored the different ways to save for retirement. It is important to think about how you allocate and manage them savings. So each of those options does come with its own balance of risk and return. And understanding how much risk you're comfortable with taking and the role that diversification plays in reducing that risk is key to building a stable and growth-focused retirement fund. So we'll just take a look at how risk and return work together and why diversification matters so much. So as you plan for retirement, it's important to understand that relationship between risk and return, especially across the different asset classes. So generally, the higher the potential return, the higher the level of risk that you're taking on. So you can see from the graph here, so cash offers the lowest risk, but then also the lowest return, making it a safe but limited option. Bonds provide moderate returns with relatively low risk, and we often use this for stability. Property offers a balance of risk and reward. It combines long-term growth with income potential. So equities are your stocks. They typically carry the highest risk, but also offer the greatest potential for long-term growth. And then commodities, they can deliver strong returns, but they come often with higher volatility due to market fluctuations. So that's things like gold we're talking about with commodities. So the key takeaway is that a diversified mix of all of these assets can help you balance that risk and reward. So depending on your goals, your time horizon, and your comfort with market ups and downs will depend on what that should look like. And if you do decide to seek our help, this sort of diversification we will manage for you. So we've explored the various ways to save for retirement, and it's clear that building a secure future does require a combination of strategies, and it is all tailored to your unique goals and circumstances. But then how do you bring that all into a plan? So we'll summarize the key financial planning steps that you should consider when you're starting to seriously think about retirement. And these steps will help you take action today, tomorrow, after the bank holiday weekend, just to ensure that your future that you envision actually becomes a reality. So what we want you to do is visualize that life. So what do you want to be doing? Do you want to go on them family holidays? Do you just want to sit in the back garden looking after your roses? What is it that you want, and what sort of income will you need? Take stock of your finances. So we always sit with clients and go through your income, your expenditure, what your current savings are, and identify that gap between where you are right now and what retirement fund that you're going to need and how it is that we're going to get you there. Take advantage of compound interest. So start as soon as you can, even if it's really small at the beginning and increasing over time. Depends on your circumstances. So everybody on this call is completely unique and has their own personal circumstances. Whatever you can do now will be beneficial in the future. Maximize any employer contributions, and like I said, keep track of your national insurance record. So literally just go on the government website and find if you can find your BR19. If Sharon would want us to send the link for that, I can send that across so she can send that out to anybody that may want it. We always recommend using the most tax efficient accounts first. So make sure you're using your ISA allowances, make sure you're using your annual allowance for pensions if you can. Maintain a diversified portfolio and make sure that any tax allowances that you're using, so your capital gains tax, your dividend tax, your personal savings allowance, make sure you're being tax efficient as well, because you don't want the taxman taking what you're saving. And always plan for those rising costs. So we've all felt it, especially since COVID, the rising cost due to inflation. At one point it was 10%. So over the last few years, we've definitely felt that pinch. So just think about that when you're looking to retirement, because you do need to factor that in, because you just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So speak to a financial advisor. So whether it's understanding how much you'll need, exploring your best savings options for your circumstances, or just aligning the already investments you've got with your goals. Personalized advice can help you build a roadmap for financial success. And that's what we're here to do, is help you get to the retirement that you want. Don't wait. Your future self will thank you for starting now. And that is the end of the presentation. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll get back to Sharon and she can collate some questions.
Thank you so much, Emma. I know that we have had a couple of questions, and I think that Rasha says that he'll answer the ones in the Q&A box. So
yeah, okay. Well, there are a couple of questions there. I'll just do them in the order that they came in, just for ease, if that's all right.
yeah.
Okay. The first one, actually, let me post in the chat first the link for.
Yeah, I think somebody's asked for the pension link in the chat.
Yeah, I couldn't, to be honest. It was flizzing by, and I was like, okay. And
don't worry, I can follow it up with the delegates afterwards, because
yeah,
I'll
if you wouldn't mind, because there were a number of things that all came across at once, and it was a bit difficult. But in terms of the question, I think the first question that I'm going to touch upon there is the pension pot in retirement versus different sort of saving options. At least that was what I took the question to mean. I think the key thing when working with an advisor is to actually look at your circumstance and plan accordingly. So what we do is take a layered approach to cut first off your financial profile, and then build the kind of financial investment profile requirements off the back of that. What does that mean in practice? Well, it means that what we do is sitting initially is understanding where you are. It then looks at your aims and objectives, and then links the various different financial options to those aims and objectives. Shorter term aims are obviously going to have a very, as was picked up by Emma in the presentation, very different investment strategy. That's the first thing to sort of touch on. And very different access requirements. You can't necessarily utilize certain investments because you might need them in 5, 8, 10 years time, saving for a property, school fees, or just a couple I've just recently done. It was for the 50th wedding anniversary. It's 10 years away, but they want to do like an Orient Express type of event. And then we looked at it online, had a look, and it was like about 7,000 to 10,000. So it's like, well, that's not going to be magicked up straight away. So it's then linking that as a particular aim into the requirement for the financial sort of profiling. If we touch upon the sort of pension side of things, that should always form part of any particular strategy, because, you know, we all sit there and look at the basis that we are going to get to retirement. We don't necessarily want to admit that we're going to get there and how old we'll be at that particular time. So starting early on and then looking at it, as we saw in the presentation, gives you the compounding effect. So when looking at a pension, yes, it should be included within the investment strategy. And yes, it's something that you should look at earlier on. And from an affordability perspective, coming back to the financial profile that we organize with a client, it's looking at the ongoing affordability of that. That then brings an element of realism to the situation to say, well, you may not necessarily get that Orient Express trip that you're looking for, but actually, if you start earlier, you might find that you've got 2 of those that you can actually plan into your retirement from different sort of financial investment options. So it's very difficult without having a personal conversation to say yes or no specifically. But if you have that conversation, you can actually identify, well, how will it work best for me? And obviously an advisor will help you do that. There was one other question. I don't know, you did a lot of talking, Em. Do you want me to just pick up on it? Are you happy for me to do that?
Yeah, more than happy, Rash.
Okay. The other one was about utilising. Oh, you've jumped off the screen now. Oh no, I've got quite a few now. Right, okay. I'll just take the first one that was there. In terms of utilising a financial, it says investor here, but I presume that's an advisor compared to doing it yourself. There's nothing wrong from a structured perspective getting involved and actually managing some of the elements yourself. It's a great way to have an understanding of market movements, as we've seen recently. It's also a great way of looking at the different asset allocation that you've got within the particular portfolio. I think probably the biggest assistance that an advisor can have is in terms of the expertise and the time that it takes to make decent investment decisions, because particularly when you're looking at a longer term strategy, depending on, you know, what your requirements are and the asset allocation in terms of the potential assets that you're looking at, equities being a classic with the volatility, but that should be reviewed regularly. And I think one of the key things from an advisory perspective is we can assist with, okay, what should I be doing? Where should I be investing? When I'm looking forwards in terms of my future, what are the options that I've got? And those are then investment decisions, which are obviously significantly assisted with using a professional. Next question. How do I claim? Okay, so tax relief for a self-employed individual. It's a bit of a deep dive question. It's still shooting up. I'm trying to keep up. Most contributions that you make from a personal level, you will get tax relief at source. The 40% is something on the self-employed side of things. Yes, you'll have to look at that. It's normally done in conjunction with an advisor, and then also looking at the assisting via the accounting individual as well. So you can provide proof of payments as well as then working with the accountant. Depending on the size of the portfolio, with the depth that an advisor and accountant will work together, from a very basic level right the way up to kind of full estate planning and being, yeah, right. Okay, next question. Financial advisor, the same as an accountant? No. Nope. That's very simple. There is a crossover point between the two. It's simply a situation of today. Accountants look back over what is happening to you as an individual in terms of income streams, and then look at what's gone on and assist you in terms of how to actually make that appear, if you like, efficiently to HMRC. Advisory, we look forwards. So what we do there is we look at the planning options that are available. We work with clients again from an aims, objectives perspective and say, okay, well, what is it you want to do? How much money do you need at that particular point? What do you look at in terms of savings? There is a bit of a crossover that occurs, particularly around this sort of time of year when you're looking at allowances and you're sort of looking to your accountant potentially and saying, if you've got a limited company, for instance, you might say, well, okay, I'm projected to make a level of profit. Okay, well, what's an efficient way of reducing the tax liability? Well, that could be pension contributions. So there is an overlap, but they are two very distinct sort of disciplines or professions. Okay, next question. Can we? Okay.
Rash, someone in the chat has asked if you can read out the question before you answer it.
Oh, right. Okay. Can we open multiple ISA accounts and each account have the 20,000 tax-free saving, or would the tax-free saving be for all of the ISAs we have combined? Okay, so the individual savings accounts it is your personal allowance. You can't open 4 or 5 and then have £100,000 allowance. Otherwise, there'd be some very wealthy clients with some very tax efficient portfolios. Next question. Would you advise merging smaller pots into one pot? Not without assessing your situation. It's very difficult as a one size fits all. Some people hate the administration. Some people like it in terms of the diversified investment strategy. So there isn't a situation where the circumstance is kind of a general blanket term. People prefer the admin in the main, but it's a conversation to have with an advisor. Next question, will my pension be taxed when I'm drawing an income from it? If so, why not put my contributions into an ISA instead of a pension pot when saving? Okay, this is quite a classic question. One of the key sorry, the questions are flicking up. One of the key things here in terms of pension contributions is you receive tax relief on it, which is obviously fairly standard stuff. But then what happens is the compounding interest that you're receiving is actually going on top of the additional amount that you're getting. So the compounding is almost in a very maximized position with regard to the contributions that you make. The other thing which is key when you get to retirement is that 25% of it will be tax-free to you, and then you can draw down some income as well. So I wouldn't rule out an ISA though. It's a great savings tool to run alongside it, and the life ISAs are a good option to have. I think one of the key things when you're looking at any financial strategy is looking at a layered approach, as I kind of mentioned earlier, that what you do is you allocate a job to each of the pots that you've got, and then look to it and say, okay, what is this going to do for me from a financial perspective? And also, what is it, more importantly, going to do for me in terms of a life perspective, creating an income, creating a design? So each of the sort of different financial areas will have some sort of contribution. Employer's pension, can they be accessed at 58 or 60? Right. Okay, that's very, very broad question. There are specific legislation requirements around pensions where you can access it slightly earlier. However, whatever you have as a particular arrangement, particularly from the employer side, they have different structures to sort of a basic pension basis. So you have to have a conversation with an advisor. One of the key things in terms of that as an appointment is to simply say, okay, here are the documents that are relevant to the scheme that I'm in. What are my options? And then obviously you can plan accordingly. You can look at the different elements. If you do retire it early and it's an employer sort of DB scheme, then you may have penalties when accessing it early. It may be a situation where the answer is no and it's fixed in stone. It's quite a broad area, and it's an assessment that needs to be oh, okay, I booked my appointment with you guys. Thank you. Thumbs up. I don't know how to do that on there, otherwise I've done it. What is a SIP, and what's the difference between having an ISA and a specific pension pot? A SIP is a self-invested personal pension. To be quite honest, with the use of that phrase in modern terms, now I don't know what's going on, but okay. In modern terms, a SIP is simply a pension wrapper. Think of it like that. There are various different types of SIP that range from a retail basis, which is just very vanilla, if you think of it in terms of flavor, right the way through to a very complicated structure where a SIP in its original or how people think in self-invested perspective has got a very different structure. And there are different providers, different allocations, and very different rules about what you can hold in each of the different types. Again, I think what's coming through with the questions, and I'll come to the trust thing in a second, is that there's a lot of information, and Emma did a very good job of conveying, the options, but all of the questions are really designed at the moment to say, well, how does this apply to me? How can I get this to work for me? There is nothing wrong with managing things on your own. However, when sitting with a professional, it actually makes that kind of navigation a lot easier, because what you can do is then be more certain around, okay, what are the suitable options that I have based on what aims that I've got, the money that I've got. It's a much more structured process. And it's one that is, well, we would consider it headache free, but it makes making those decisions a lot more simple and straightforwards. Would you recommend, sorry, the next question, would you recommend setting up a trust for assets for retirement? Okay, trusts have their place. One of the things that we do when we look at any type of financial planning is we look at, think of it in terms of boxes or buckets or options. You start at a basic level. We then look at doing an overall financial profile with you to understand what you have now. And then we look at okay, well, let's plug the gaps first that we would consider more of a priority from an advisory perspective to meet those particular aims. And sometimes they're things that just through experience, I've been doing this pre-gray hair, so you've kind of seen a lot of different iterations of client and circumstance. So, well, actually this might work for you. But what that does is then you make sure that you've got the basics, because trusts, one, can be quite expensive. They can be quite convoluted in their particular requirements. Again, we assist clients for sort of in setting them up, arranging it, but that's more of an estate planning position. So what I like to see is, have you done the basics before we get to more complicated structure? Because it's all well and good having some whizzo planning, but sometimes you've overlooked some of the basics which you should kind of get to and complete first. An example being that currently pensions are a very specific type of retirement trust arrangement that's very effective. Like I'm using Moneybox and I got lifetime ISA and I get some interest every month. So do you recommend to pay more than 4K per year? It makes sense. I'm not sure how to answer that question.
I think just to note on the lifetime ISA, for whoever asked that question, the limit is £4,000 a year into a lifetime ISA. So you couldn't pay more into the lifetime ISA. If you meant something different, then yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of, I think for me, that is touching upon, if you've used that coming back to my comment about using the basics and understanding how does it apply to me, when you look at that particular box bucket option, you filled that. If we then expand that slightly and say, well, actually, we're going to look at this year's ISA allowance, well, you've got a bit of bandwidth that you can use, and then the options will be, you know, do you look at the sort of cash side of things? Do you look at the stocks and shares? You know, what are the access requirements? What's your long-term view? So yes, it does make sense to make sure you're saving your money, but what we'd help you do is make sure that you're kind of using as many of the financial options effectively and efficiently as possible.
Yeah. Thank you. There's one in the chat as well. I'm now self-employed, but I previously paid into the workplace pension. Can I pay money into this workplace pension still, or can I open a private pension and transfer the workplace nest pension into the new pension pot?
Okay. That's a very broad question. I think one of the key things overall is that pensions flexibility is something that you can definitely look to. I would definitely advise that particular individual to book an appointment. What we can then do is specifically look at what the options are, because the answer is yes, fundamentally, but there also can be no as well, because it's pensions and it's never straightforward as a so I'd rather get a personal kind of sit down and run through the details so that you can be specific, because one of the key things is to look at costs and charges, and also in terms of what you want to achieve overall. It's not as straightforward as just getting a new one and then transferring it all around.
Another one in the chat. I'm both employed and self-employed. With my employed position, I'm paying into a pension. Can I set up a lifetime ISA for 20% of my self-employed pay before tax as a pension without setting it up officially? Again, I think that might be a personal sort of.
Yeah, I think we need to have that. That's as they say, we better take that one offline and have a conversation. If you want, I'll see if I can post this again. I've just put in the chat again the link to book an appointment.
Yeah.
I think fundamentally the answer is that we need to assess where the income stream is coming from to make sure that it meets the requirements to receive as tax efficiently as possible. But it would meet, in my mind, say, well, why are you not looking to a pension first? Because you get the additional tax relief, which then identifies, well, what's the income stream that you're receiving? Is it employer based? Is it employee based? Are you receiving it personally before you're paying? So it's almost to create a bit of a financial audit first. What we will then do is say, actually, if you, and this may be a joined up approach with an accountant at that particular time, because it might be more efficient simply to, if you're self-employed but via say a limited company, the payment would be more efficient as an employer payment directly from the limited company because you have corporation tax relief. Well, there are some other tax reliefs that you can look to in terms of the dynamics. So it'd be worthwhile booking an appointment to have that conversation, and we can plan that strategy more effectively.
All right. I think we're done. I think we've cleared everything.
Is that
Thanks,
all right?
Rash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to say that after the webinar's finished, you'll get an automatic email anyway with that link as well. So it's an automatic. As soon as we finish it, that'll go out as a sort of. We've put it as a feedback link, but actually it's an appointment link for you. So it'll go out, and I can follow it up by email as well. And I think as well somebody's asked for that link for the pension as well. The
For
link
the BR19, is that the one?
The NI contribution on Gov website link.
Yeah, I'll get it now. 2 seconds.
Yeah. That's a great thing to check. I mean, again, coming back to the comments around, sometimes sitting with an advisor can be a straightforward basis of a sense check and a bit of admin around your circumstance to make sure that you've kind of planned accordingly and got the sort of basics in order before you then look at further planning.
Yeah.
Good sense check.
Yes. Lovely. And this has been recorded, so anybody can have a copy of it afterwards. I think somebody's asked for it actually was very useful, that table with the figures. It sort of makes it a little bit more real, doesn't it?
Yes, for sure.
You actually think, could I actually live on that?
Well, yeah, I think one of my favorite slides is the growth. I know it's boring, but it's kind of this stuff. But it's looking at the way that if you delay it over time, it's all well and good seeing it in a tabulated form. But when you look at the graph and you actually see, well, hang on, if I start 10 years earlier, the level that makes in terms
the difference.
It's really very, very large. And it's not then, I just need to put twice as much money. It's triple, it's quadruple. It's quite a big jump. And that's, I mean, we do cash flow modeling as well with clients to try and help them assess if you've got different levels of risk, how would that impact on your savings? And again, coming back to one of the earlier questions about using a financial advisor versus self-management, an advisor will be able to help you track that more effectively and then take away the headache of where am I? What am I doing? How does this look? Am I on track? You can then literally sit with an advisor and help with that interpretation.
Brilliant. Lovely. And I think we're pretty much bang on time as well. So
perfect.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Because this is financial advice, there is no CPD, so you won't get a certificate from me, and I'll therefore have a lovely Easter break. But you will get the follow-up email with the links from me and from Emma and from Rash. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. I look forward to the next one because they've been really, really useful. We had one last night. We had like a student webinar last night, and I said. And we were talking about financial planning, and I alluded to the fact we'd got this one tonight. And on the back of that, I've also been sending people out the one that we had back in December about the mortgages as well. So it definitely is something that the members really have an appetite to have more information. So look forward to the next one.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Sharon.
Yeah, thank you very much, and have a fantastic Easter, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.